In this video, we explore the question of what is Dune Spice Wars. And as a Star Citizen player, a completely different genre, but still very exciting. Und eine deutsche Version des Videos findet ihr in der Videobeschreibung. After the topic of Dune received a lot of attention with a recently released blockbuster by Denis Villeneuve, we are naturally very curious to see whether Dune Spice Wars from the developer Shiro Games and publisher Funcom, which was launched in early access, can also meet expectations. Especially since we of course have the best nostalgic memories of true game classics like Dune 1 or Dune 2 from 1992. So we set off for the desert planet Dune in search of the spice melange, the story of the Muad'Dib and of course the gigantic sandworms. Worm signs. But first an important note, we are in no way affiliated with the developer Shiro Games or Funcom, nor are we being compensated in any way or receiving any other benefit for this video. So this is our absolutely private, free and unbased opinion. We were able to spend some time in the pre-production version before the early access release and from our own opinion. Therefore, some parts of the video may have changed slightly in the release version. And for tips, questions and your opinion on Dune Spice Wars, feel free to use the comment function, visit us in the Discord or in the regular Twitch live streams. You can find these links in the video description. In Dune Spice Wars, 4 playable factions await us. The House of Atreides, led by the charismatic Duke Leto Atreides, the House of the Cruel Harkonnen, and their truly obese Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. The faction of the Smugglers, represented by the most respected of his guild, Esmar Tück, and the Native Freemen, who, led by elite kinds, must defend themselves against the occupiers of their world. After choosing a faction, we can also select 2 of 4 alignments, which consists of well-known characters from the novel and film series, and give our faction various bonuses. And we will go into all the details about the different factions, the different character bonuses, the trading, research and espionage system, as well as the different deeper systems in the second part of the series on Dune Spice Wars. We start on the procedurally generated map, where we initially only have our fortress and an ornithopter for reconnaissance. Here we first go in search of a spice occurrence, and this is the prerequisite for a fixed income and ultimately also decides our success in the battle for supremacy on Arrakis, also known as Dune.
Yes, sir.
However, we can also discover much more than just spice occurrences. We will, of course, pay a visit to these ruins later. But first we need a spice occurrence. The map in Dune consists of individual sectors, each of which has a settlement that we must first bring under our control, so that we can then construct buildings in this area and benefit from an existing troop supply. To do this, we raise the first military units and attack the settlements, which have militias of varying strength to defend them. Although this is not a problem at the beginning with just 2 military units. After the victory over the defenders, we can eventually bring the settlement under our control, provided we have the necessary resources of water and authority to do so. And since each sector usually has a special feature, such as special resource bonuses, a spice field or tactical advantages, Dune also plays tactically and strategically, which offers enormous replay value even in the early access version. In addition, we are increasingly taxed by the Emperor, have to act diplomatically with our competitors, have to manage an extensive espionage and research system, and of course the adversities that the planet itself demands of us. However, the primary focus is, of course, the spice melange, which for those familiar with the novels is produced by the giant sandworms. Most factions need a harvester to mine spice, which we obtain from a built spice refinery, equipped with personnel, also a resource, and finally transport directly to the spice field with a carryall. We do not have a direct control over the harvester. We can only drop it off or have it picked up in case of danger. As soon as the harvester starts working, the spice flows and our possibilities to take possession of Dune increase. However, you should be careful to bring your harvester to safety when you see a worm sign. because the sandworms react to shocks and vibrations and therefore appear again and again at our spice fields, at least if you play a faction that uses these monsters. And the loss of such a harvester is really not a small matter, as the resources required for it are not insignificant. Therefore, a tip: use the pickup function as soon as the first worm signs appear, which you can see via the warning message in the upper bar. As soon as our spice production has started, we can train more units and secure the most lucrative sectors possible to increase our influence and our possibilities. However, we can also peacefully take over sectors with the Scifi-RTS faction, which is one of the core features of these good-natured water-world inhabitants. This usually takes longer, but we don't need troops for this, who can't die in one of the random sandstorms, for example. Here we prefer to use our troops to collect bonuses, such as in these ruins, whereby we always have to pay attention to the supply points outside our own area, as these decrease permanently outside, and our troops ultimately die when there is no more supply. Through research, the supply can be significantly improved, but then we still have to keep an eye on our troops. Here we did make it back to our own territory, but the supply was already depleted, and we would have had to reach a settlement first. Especially when attacking settlements or our enemies, the supply component always plays an important role. In general, we mostly have ground troops or air units available. We do not find tanks or light vehicles. Here, the Dune Spice Wars is strongly based on the novel and film, and less on the Dune game series. However, the different factions offer considerable differences in the way they play and their orientation, with the Harkonnen focusing more on oppression and violence and sending powerful units into battle. In addition, the unit types, as well as the settlement and sector system, offer a lot of tactical depth, whereby the AI already reacts well, even on the easiest difficulty level, and surprised us again and again. We used the Fremen attack on a settlement to eliminate the weakened attackers and ultimately take the settlement ourselves. But even in battle, you should always keep an eye out for worm signs, as the vibrations also attract our scaly spice producers. Here we can only take refuge on rocky terrain. Our planned offensive against the Fremen was then interrupted by unexpected raider attacks, which strike again and again from undiscovered areas at mostly inopportune moments. For in contested areas production stalls, and we should quickly take care of the problems. And the Fremen use this distraction to attack the contested, strategically important settlements again, which we were just able to fend off and use for our own purposes. Our goal is to carve up the Fremen territory, cut off their supplies and, above all, secure the important spice field. But this became an unexpectedly tough battle against the AI. Because they build defenses and keep sending reinforcements, which focus us to retreat even with multiple promoted units. And so several attacks were necessary to finally attempt a takeover, only to be invaded again and lose our important units. For the promotion of units offers significantly more powerful characteristics and real advantages in battle. The promotions are automatic and depend on the experience points of defeated enemies, whereby militias in settlements give fewer experience points than, for example, specialized units of our opponents. The loss of our long-held veterans is therefore all the more tragic. And after the AI then directly exploited our weakness, we also had to accept sensitive territorial losses. In the end, we were only able to prevent the fiasco by airlifting freshly raised forces at a cost, whereby the smuggler faction also came to our unintentional aid with its own attack on the Fremen. The AI is therefore unusually strong and exploits weaknesses in a targeted manner. However, we could also observe isolated lapses, such as troops simply running through enemy fire or not intervening during a takeover. Such observations were, however, the absolute exception. Moreover, areas that were tough to be safe are often destabilized by raiders or uprisings, which requires quick action. And after the Fremen just had their hands full against the smugglers, we again launched an attack attempt, only to be repulsed again. However, the AI opponents also have to deal with the same adversities, such as raids or uprisings, which always provides opportunities to use them for our own purposes. In the end, thanks to a raid on the settlement, we were able to use the favor of the hour and bring it under our control, which then brought the Fremen a defeat in the further course of the game. So far, we have not been bored in the games we have played, since we have the conquer sectors, manage and expand resources, advance research, pay ever higher taxes and duties, shape politics through espionage and influence, and third parties such as sandworms and robbers have repeatedly restructured our plans. We also have to plan our buildings and territories, since various bonuses of buildings often also affect neighboring sectors, and we are therefore always working on optimizing our economy and production. The varied map design, which is generated anew with each party, offers many tactical possibilities, as the placement of the spice and bonus resources requires a well-thought-out approach. In this game, the capture of this sector was ultimately our key to victory. In terms of game depth, Dune Spice Wars offers an easy-to-learn, hard-to-master principle, as we can quickly implement the basic mechanics, but in the medium term we will always come across new and profound possibilities. Among other things, we can not only take over settlements, but also fight and rob them for training purposes for our troops, which provides us with resources and strengthens our troops, and does not force us to supply a new settlement or provide the necessary raw materials for it. But we can also render settlements that are of interest to our opponents unusable after a freshly robbed settlement cannot be taken over for some time. And if we use the comfort function of an automatic collection for our spice harvesters, we are safe from worm attacks, but we get significantly less spice yield. And we haven't enough touched on diplomacy, espionage and the trading system yet, which we will cover in detail in the second part of this video. Because this is also multi-layered and in connection with the research options offers profound possibilities in the most diverse areas of the game. The biggest difference between the playable factions is offered by the Fremen, who, as natives of Arrakis, can among other things fall back on the possibility of displaying all spice occurrences on the map, or even fall back on spice production without harvesters, which significantly reduces the yield but eliminates dangers from worm attacks or an attack on harvesters. This offers completely different possibilities, starting with tactical planning for sectors after the important spice fields are completely known. On the other hand, the Fremen are politically involved only in a roundabout way and offer much less clout here. However, it is by no means less fun to go into battle with the Fremen, since the differences are noticeable, but the balancing seems to be given for all factions after the first hours of play, and we can achieve success everywhere with different playstyles and prerequisites. The Fremen are especially suited for quick and surprising attacks, since they not only have strong units in their disposal, but can also use very special and fast means of transport, thanks to the sandworms. But first, a look at the sieges hitting everywhere, which can either be captured militarily or turned into allies diplomatically, and in any case offer bonuses. Here, however, you need either very strong troops or a long diplomatic breath. But let's move on to the coolest form of transport in Dune Spice Wars, a ride on the Shai-Hulud, the Sandworm. To this, the Fremen use the thumper to lure a worm and ultimately indicate the destination. This makes surprise attacks absolutely deadly. In the second part of the video series, you can expect all the details about the different resources and bonuses, the 4 factions and the 4 variants each, the espionage, research and politics system, and some tips on how to optimize your buildings and sectors. And maybe we will also find the Mua deep there. And of course, I would be very happy about a like and a subscription. See you again at the next part, and see you soon!